Hello, and welcome to Travel Stories Unpacked, the travel podcast where we talk about all things, from the silly to the serious and everywhere in between. I am your host, Ashley Newton, and thank you so much for spending some of your time with us. We really appreciate it. So, we are actually coming to you this week with a part 2 episode where we are continuing our conversation about tourist traps. So, if you haven't checked out part 1, I highly suggest you go and do so, but you don't really need to understand where we're going with this because part 1 we focused on US tourist traps, and for part 2 we are taking it international, baby. So Annie, thank you for coming back for part 2.
Thanks for having me back because I have so many opinions about international tourist traps as well.
Yeah, so before we get into that, something that we sort of touched on in part 1 was tourist traps that are more experiential than landmarks. And something that I really wanted to talk about isn't something that's specific to a city, but that I think of as strictly catering to tourists, and that is medieval times. Have you ever done that before?
No, but I think I would do it.
So I think in my memory, I remember that medieval times it's not a rotating thing because you thought that it was on location basically.
I thought it was like a traveling circus.
Yeah, I remember being a building. It is a permanent structure and it's shaped like a castle and it's got that whole fake castle facade thing on the front. But I feel like I looked it up recently and they only exist sort of in touristy areas.
I've never been to one, but I think LARPing is really interesting.
Well, I did the one by Myrtle Beach.
LARPing?
No.
I didn't know you were a LARPer. That's
no,
cool.
I would though. I'm not one of the I just don't have people in my life that would commit to that with me, and you can't do that alone.
Yeah, hi.
We'll take it out of the chat.
Yeah, LARPing, for those of you who don't know what that is, LARP stands for live action role play. And yeah, it's totally as nerdy as it sounds, but super cool.
Yeah, and medieval times is very much what it sounds like. It is a bunch of people putting on a show, and they are in medieval times. But I did think I read recently that because the whole objective used to be about like a jousting tournament, all those various things that knights would do, and then at the end there'd be a king. But I think recently they were it's a queen now. And I was like, I am here for that.
I mean, same, but still, I have no idea what medieval times is all about.
Yeah, they go around on horse. Okay, so have you been to a rodeo?
No.
Or because the arena itself is kind of interesting because it's got traditional circle seating all the way around, but then in the middle it is literally a sand pit. And this is how I remember it, okay? So correct me if I'm incorrect here. But and then they have horses and they trot them out and they have the different events. So have you seen A Knight's Tale?
With Heath Ledger, no.
What the? Okay, homework for I'm honestly. So
I'll watch it right after
that.
I watch A Christmas Story.
That's so good. No, skip that. Skip A Christmas Story.
That's a reference
movie.
to part 1. If you haven't, we went on a tangent about that.
But no, A Knight's Tale is so good. But I can't think of any other movies where they go over Have you seen Shrek?
Okay, thank you. Yes, of course.
Okay, so in the beginning when they're having the tournament to find the champion. It's like that, right? So they're doing all these medieval type of things. But anyway, God, we got on this huge tangent explaining medieval times.
I would watch that if it was Shrek cosplay.
Yes. Okay, get on that. Get that DreamWorks IP and work on it.
Let's get that going, guys.
But that is something that is totally touristy. There's nothing authentic about it. It's very showy, but I had a blast. And it's definitely an age type thing and you have to be into it, but there's no way you can be oh yeah, that's what us North Myrtle Beachers do all the time. Of course not.
It's a great local tradition.
Yeah, exactly. But I still had a good time, and especially if you had kids that were into that sort of thing, I would recommend it. So is there anything that's tourist trappy but more experience that you either hate or love?
Gosh, I think the one tourist trap experience that I absolutely would have done but didn't get to do was in Tokyo. You can rent those not golf carts, the go-karts.
Oh, okay.
That light up and you can wear a costume so you look like a character from Mario Kart and you're led through the city. You're driving a go-kart along with regular traffic through the city. And I wish I would have done that.
So are you actually in control of the go-kart?
Yeah. It's you and like a whole like line of people. There's someone leading at the front and then someone at the back to make sure no one like gets lost.
Okay.
But yeah, you rent a go-kart and they lead you basically on a tour through Tokyo. In a go-kart that lights up that looks like a cart from Mario
So
Kart.
do you think that's something a lot of locals are doing?
No, not at all. Are you kidding me? No.
But still worth it. Still a
Yeah.
fun time.
And the only reason why I didn't was because I didn't know that you needed a international driver's license to do it. But if it weren't for that, like, yeah, put me in a Yoshi costume. I'm absolutely
Yeah.
down to do it.
So international driver's license, because you have driven out of the US before.
Yeah.
So not everywhere requires that?
Some places don't. It's always a good bet to get one, though. It's super easy to get. You just go to your local, like, AAA, whatever, and it's like a little booklet. And I've driven on, like, you've never really tested your driving skills until you've gone through a roundabout, but on the left side.
Oh my God. Just no. Like, there's nowhere I need to be. I will absolutely not partake in that. Thank you, though. It does sound like an absolute nightmare.
Yeah, I mean, you get used to it pretty quick as long as you don't mind the locals honking at you because you're about to hit them. But you get used to it pretty quick. But yeah, the Tokyo Mario Kart thing, super touristy. You get a lot of side eye from the locals because yeah, it's only tourists do that. And I
Yeah.
don't care. I'll still do it.
Yeah. So another like experiential tourist trap thing that comes to mind are like anytime you hear about what do they call that where it's like like a pop-up bar or a pop-up exhibit or something where
Yeah.
it's like we're not here for long, so better come check us out. And like those I feel like can be so hit or miss because like
Mhm.
it might be something the locals want to do because it's like this is actually just really cool and it's not going to be here very long. So, like, everybody's kind of into it. Or they can just be such seemingly obvious cash grabs. Do you know what I'm saying?
It could be. I mean, who's to say that it can't be both? You know what I mean?
True.
Like when I forget which season it was of Stranger Things when it came out, my nieces were totally swept up in it and they live in Tokyo and somewhere someone did a pop-up Stranger Things cafe and tickets sold out months in advance.
Wow. Yeah.
And people were traveling internationally to go to this thing in Tokyo, the Stranger Things cafe.
Like,
But
that is my specific weak spot. Like, food and a theme, like,
know.
yes, of course. So, like, that I would, like, absolutely want to do. But I was thinking about this time I was doing a bachelorette in Dallas, and I was planning it, and I was looking up all the things to do, and I found this thing, and I was like, "Oh, wow, this is so cool." It was, like, I don't know, some kind of Sweets hotel or something, and, I thought it was, like, a Dallas institution, you know what I mean? Like, I was like, "Oh, this will be so great." And then the more I'm looking at it, the more I'm like, wait, this is just a bunch of Instagram setups. Like that was literally the whole point of the place was like you'd go into all these different rooms, pose and take photos. And of course they're trying to market it as something that isn't that, but like that is the point of a place like that. So like I'm really glad I looked into it more and then was able to explain it with more context. And I was like, if this is something the group wants to do, it keeps coming up. But like
yeah.
nothing about this feels to me like it is worth number one, the amount of money, or like number two, getting a feel for the city that we're in.
Yeah. I think there are a few places that come to mind for me that maybe you would think is a tourist trap, but really it's more of a like a memorial. Like I think often of the Holocaust Memorial in Berlin. I think the full name of it is Holocaust Memorial to the Murdered Jews of Europe. And it was a very like somber experience, the memorial itself. But it wasn't like a tourist trap. Like people weren't there taking selfies to post on Instagram.
You
like,
hope not.
You would
really
hope not.
hope not.
It's like the kind of place where both locals and tourists respect, just because it's a memorial to one of the most horrific times in history. And something that stands out in my mind about that too is I totally found it by accident. I was there and then I walked across the street, and if you know what the memorial looks like, it's a lot of blocks, like almost like monoliths, because to represent the sameness that the Jews were kind of viewed by the Nazis. Like everyone's the same to us, doesn't matter. And then we cross the street and there's one monolith that looks like the others, but it's different and it represents. I think in German it translates to English memorial to homosexuals persecuted under Nazism, because a lot of homosexuals were also persecuted, but it was kind of like a forgotten group. So that was a memorial to them, and I had no idea it existed. So it's one of those experiences where, it is a tourist trap. but there's a known respect to not treat it like one.
Well, and that's really interesting to me because I think tourist trap inherently has a level of cheapness to it. You know, it
Mm-hmm.
feels like we were talking about in part one, like it's not very authentic or whatever. And then there's the other side of the tourist trap where it's just like, well, everybody does this. Do you know what I mean? So like I don't think a historical or a place that has that level of significance can be put on the same level of tourist traps as like Plymouth Rock. Like something we were talking about in part one.
You and
It's
this,
just
you gotta let this Plymouth Rock thing go, dude.
I will never. It's me against Plymouth Rock forever. But like, you know what I mean? It's like, yes, it might be some, and again, it's totally up to you if that's something you would like to spend time on your vacation or your travels doing. But I do think they're just like apples and oranges. You get
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
But it does happen though. Like, so same trip when I was in Berlin, I also went to Checkpoint Charlie, which was a very significant checkpoint during the Cold War of the Berlin Wall. And I thought it was really cool. But then I turn around and it's literally like Starbucks, McDonald's. Like, it's the weirdest thing.
Yeah.
It's kind of tacky.
I remember the first time that I saw what the pyramids in Egypt actually look like and what that
Yes.
surrounding area, and it was embarrassingly late in life, but for some reason I still thought you were like hiking out and trekking on camels and like like really like traveling into the middle of the desert to be able to see these ancient wonders. No,
No. But you know what?
Of course not.
That is
Though.
kind
Also,
of
of course not.
Yeah, but the pyramids is one thing that I know. Like, yes, I know what it actually looks like in reality, but I'm still gonna go because I went through a pretty intense Egypt phase as a kid. Like, everyone talks
Yes.
about the Roman Empire, like whatever, cool. But like, I definitely went through
I mean,
an
like the
Egypt
Mummy,
phase.
right?
Cinematic masterpiece.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. If you don't watch The Mummy at least 3 to 4 times a year, I cannot trust you as a person, like
Yeah,
at all.
For
Like
sure.
that is the best movie of all time.
All time. Totally historically
But
accurate
would
as well.
you consider something like the pyramids bordering or fully in tourist traps?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
I think
but yet I'm still gonna go see them.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure. Like, there's another example of like knowing something's a total tourist trap, but you're gonna go anyway. For me, was I mentioned in part one, I love big open air markets. Was Tsukiji Market in Tokyo. Yeah, I know it's overpriced, it's packed with tourists, but I don't care. I've been to Japan 3 times and I still go every time because it's so cool.
Well, and if you're a people watcher, sometimes you want to be in the tourist areas.
Oh,
You know
yeah.
what I mean? Like that's part of like your whole thing for you. I'm not
Mhm.
you specifically.
Yo, I mean-
but like if that's something that you're into, like you're gonna want to go to those places and see people do the craziest things.
Yeah, well-
What is one? Go ahead. Go
I
ahead.
was gonna say, talking about people acting crazy around a tourist trap. I think it's hilarious that the Little Mermaid statue in Copenhagen, it's more famous as a tourist trap than what it actually is, which is in honor of Hans Christian Andersen, who's from Copenhagen.
And you actually saw this in person.
Yeah,
the
I
Little
went.
Mermaid monument or
Yeah,
whatever
but
they
at the
call it.
time, I didn't know that it was a well-known tourist trap. I just thought, cool, I'll go check it out. So it's such a waste of my time. And it's become a thing among the locals there, I guess, where it's just famous for just getting vandalized all the time.
Oh really?
Yeah, like when I was there, I mean, she's been decapitated a few times, I think. When I was
Violent.
when I was there, she was missing an arm.
Oh my god.
But
Why do
then-
they keep investing
I don't
in
know.
this statue?
I don't know. I don't know, but it's just become like this thing now where it's more famous, like I said, for being a tourist trap than being the Little Mermaid.
Yeah.
And people will like dress it up in soccer jerseys if there's a big game for like good luck. So it's become like this local thing now.
Oh my gosh. So of all the tourist traps you've been to, was that one the worst?
Oh no.
Okay, what was the worst tourist trap that you've actually experienced internationally?
Internationally?
Yeah.
Oh gosh. That one is definitely up there, but I think
I have a guess. Is it Blue Lagoon?
I would say the Blue Lagoon probably
Okay,
in Iceland.
can I describe to you? I've never been to Iceland, and this is my internet impression of the Blue
Okay.
Lagoon.
All right.
So the Blue Lagoon is this majestic, untapped
not.
reservoir of nature where you can fully immerse yourselves in these natural springs, and the water's
It's not.
warm, but the air is cold, and it's this crazy color blue, and it's just like peaceful, and like that's what it looks like to me when
Nope.
I see videos. But what was it really like?
So I did a drive-by of it because when I went to Iceland, I went with 2 of my friends who really wanted to go visit. I'm like, it's not like the only hot spring pool, right? And we're not even going to be in Reykjavik that long, but they really want to check it out. I'm like, you can go check it out. I won't. So they were looking up, first of all, you don't just go there and like get into the pool. You have to buy tickets way in advance. They're way overpriced. And you can only go certain times of the
Do you
day
remember
according
what
to
it
your ticket.
costs when you were there? Because it's
Like,
probably even more now.
I think it was like 40 or 50 bucks.
US dollars?
40 or 50 American US dollars.
I mean, honestly, nowadays, I feel like that's the cost of doing business anywhere, but I bet you now it's probably more than that.
And it's crowded with tourists. It's kind of gross, honestly.
Yeah.
It's just
Is
disgusting.
it like being in like a wave pool almost, where it's like that shoulder to shoulder, like everybody's
It can
in
be.
there?
So all the photos you see of the people in the Blue Lagoon, there's no one else around. It's because they get up so early to do it.
Yeah.
And honestly, they probably crop them out in Photoshop. Because that is so unrealistic.
Does the water actually look like that? And is it naturally that color blue, do you know?
It's not. It didn't look that blue, but I think it really depends on
People
time
are just
of day.
upping that saturation.
For sure.
The
point is there's no shortage of natural hot springs in Iceland. Other ones you can go to that are way more authentic than the Blue Lagoon. Yeah. But so
did it feel almost like a amusement park attraction or something, like, where you're in queue, you get your ticket and then you go to your locker and you stow your stuff?
No, literally, yeah. No, I'm not saying it's the same level as like the wave pool at Cedar Point. Like, it's different, but and I can understand why it's a big draw for people who love, because they're sitting in a hot spring. It's kind of like a cultural thing too. Like, it's how they relax. But that Blue Lagoon, like, I'd be shocked if any local Icelander would ever say that's like their go-to place.
Right.
Like, I'd be shocked. I think another one that I was just like, this is so stupid. Why did we do this? Was years ago, one of my good friends and I, we went to Australia, and one of the places we were in was Sydney, and there's a famous beach there called Bondi Beach. Hopefully I'm saying that right. So,
that's how I've heard it.
Bondi? Okay, good. So we went to Bondi Beach. Such a waste of time. First of all, it's way overcrowded. Famous beaches in general, I feel like, are kind of known for being overcrowded.
Australia's got so much coastline, so what would make
nothing? There's nothing special about it. Like, absolutely nothing special about this beach. There's no particular landmark. There's no famous restaurant.
Is it like good, like surfing?
I mean, but it's
environment,
or Australia. I feel like you know what I mean?
I mean, I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out why this one in particular was like.
Well, we were there and we were trying to figure it out. And tell you what, we came up with nothing.
Gosh.
Yeah. But speaking of famous beaches in Australia, before we got to Sydney, I was in Melbourne, and the beach there, I believe it's St. Kilda, was really cool. It's just super laid back. Not a lot of tourists, really, because I feel like everyone who goes to Australia, there is a rivalry between Melbourne and Sydney.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, to the point where the Australian government was like, well, we're not going to name either of you the capital of Australia, because then the other city won't let you live it down. But one thing that we did that was absolutely mind-blowing, a huge tourist trap, was we did go to the Outback. We went to Uluru. Which was really cool. It's part of the hopefully I'm saying this right, the Kata Tjuta Aboriginal Park.
Okay.
So it's very protected, and you could stay there overnight, but it's super expensive. So the alternative is you stay in Alice Springs, which is the other closest city. It's not even a city, it's more like a township. And the airport that we flew into, I swear, like, the local community college is bigger than this airport.
Wow. Yeah.
So I met up with my friend Catherine. We really wanted to go to Uluru, and she is so sick.
I was gonna say, you told this story.
So sick. Like, I didn't even want to be near her, but I'm not gonna say me. I booked a bus tour for us to pick us up in Alice Springs and go to Uluru, which is about 10-hour round trip drive. Just the drive. Because this trip also included multiple stops, a sunset barbecue in front of the famous rock, which was awesome. I loved that. But all in all,
so far it sounds good. What made it a tourist trap?
It is a tourist trap, because I mean, you're on a bus and like they're literally busing you in through this national park.
But if you're trying to protect the park and to make sure it's not overcrowded, like, I don't know.
That's true.
To me, that's like, good job.
Yeah. But the thing is, the most memorable part of that trip to me was how sick Catherine was.
Yeah.
And unbeknownst to me, the bus tour that I booked, their claim to fame was being the world's longest one-day bus tour.
Oh my God.
Like, start to finish. They picked us up at like 6 a.m. and I don't think we got back to our place until almost midnight. She is dying.
That's just too long. Even
I
if you don't
know.
get motion sickness, even if you like love buses, like it's
Yeah.
too long.
Well, not even that, like, but you know what, Catherine, if you're watching, like, I still sing praises about you being able to do this.
Yeah.
She's right there with me hiking through the desert, like, and she's keeping up, like,
That would be
she's
my
halfway
final
to
resting place if that
yeah.
was me. I'd be in that desert still. Bye, Ashley. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, right.
But I would say, like, because I was thinking about the international tourist traps that I've experienced, and I kind of have split feelings about the one that kept coming up when I was like researching this, and that's Dunn's River Falls in
Mm.
Jamaica. So I booked it through a cruise excursion. So again, you're looking at the photos, and I'm just like, oh, this is so cool. We're going to have like a local guide, and they're going to lead us through this waterfall. It'll be our small group of however many people book this excursion. And, like it'll be real rough and tumble in the jungle. And like, I could not have been more wrong. Like Dunn's River is very commercialized. It's a water park. It's a natural water
Really?
park. I mean, I can't think of any other way to describe it. But like, they have like a kiddie little area, and then
Oh,
like
no.
again, huge queues to like get in, and like
It's
the
the
amount of
it's the Blue Lagoon
a
of
little
Jamaica.
bit, and like the amount of people there is just staggering. And then you have group on group on group all getting led through like different parts of the falls. And like for me, honestly, I still really enjoyed it, but it was not at all what I thought it would be. And I could totally understand why people consider it a tourist trap if you don't know how commercialized and just like
Mhm.
crowded the experience is going to be. And if you're like me and thinking like, oh, I'm going to be hiking through the waterfall jungles of Jamaica,
Machete in hand, just
yeah, like I don't know, I was just like, this is going to be like a private, intimate, like thing, and it wasn't like that at all. So like,
no.
yeah, so I don't know, like I said, I don't think it was a bad time. I was just like completely ill-informed about what I thought it was going to be.
I have a very similar experience to that. It was also a cruise expedition, and we were in Grand Cayman, and I was looking at the list of excursions available, and I was like, "Oh, Crystal Caves, that looks awesome!" Like, you can go to a beach, sure, but like, how often are you gonna get to go to a the caves?
I'm picking beach over caves every time.
Yeah, but a beach is a beach is a beach, right?
And they're all great, but go on.
Well, I can't say the same for the caves. So the picture made it look like the water that gathered in the crystal caves, like you could swim in it, you can see to the bottom. It's super clear. And what they don't tell you is that you can go in the water, but the guides will tell you in person though that, when you can't get a refund anymore, that you shouldn't because that's where all the bats poop.
Yeah,
you
which is like very toxic, isn't it? Like bat guano?
I
Isn't that what they call it?
yeah, backwana. Yeah,
Yeah.
and there were bats there. None of us got, pooped on, but
Have
but
you
it was
seen
just
have you
so
seen the Reading Rainbow documentary on Netflix?
no.
Okay, you should watch it because it's really good. But in it, they were talking about going into a bat cave for one of the episodes, and how at the bottom, feeding on the bat excrement is this special insect or special like
Mm-mm.
mouse or something, and the baby. What do you call those? Like the baby bats, like when they're learning how to do their upside down fly thing or whatever. If they fall, they have literally zero time to get back up because what is on the cave floor will eat their whole entire body down to skeletal remains. Like so crazy. So ever since that, I was like, I'm good on caves. I'm good on bats. Like they can do
Well,
their thing. I'll do my thing.
That was not in the description when I booked it. So
It may have been this very special cave in this episode of Reading Rainbow. I don't know.
It was just like not what I expected. And
Yeah.
halfway through the tour, I think me and the group I was with, we all just kind of looked at each other like, and just acknowledged that this is not what we thought it was. And the only thing that kept us going was that it was hot out and there was going to be free beer at the end. So
Yes.
it's like they knew that
Yeah.
the group was going to be disappointed.
Well, and I think that's such a thing too, is like if especially like a cruise excursion or if you only have a certain amount of time and destination, to find out that you wasted so much of your time and money on something that you truly just did not enjoy. Because that's another thing. If you like the tourist traps, like more power to you. But if you hate it, then it puts it even more in the tourist trap bucket. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like if you hate an experience and then you're like, that was just a tourist trap. Like
I do think though there are some things that both locals and tourists enjoy that maybe would be considered somewhat of a tourist trap. And for me, that always makes me think of the ruin pubs in Budapest.
I don't know anything about those, so tell me.
And yeah, I know it's Budapest. We talked about this already. But I'm
Get
gonna say
over it.
get over it. I'm gonna say Budapest because I'm not a snob usually. So so ruin pubs in Budapest are really cool. They are outdated and abandoned warehouses, really dating back to like post World War II when a lot of populations moved. And they just sat there kind of like rotted with the times. And eventually some people were like, why don't we turn these into like commercial spaces for bars and art installations and stuff like that? So it's like a very underground thing, or at least it was. And it became like a famous touristy thing, but the locals partake in it too, as far as I know.
Yeah.
Like when we went, like we saw people from all sorts of backgrounds, a lot of local Hungarians, people from I actually met someone from Medina, Ohio.
Oh my God,
So
that's
I have this
hilarious.
theory that no matter where in the world you go, you always meet someone from Ohio.
My mom used to say that, but down to like our city. Like it was the
Oh,
weirdest thing
yeah.
for a while. Anytime we would like leave our little bubble, somebody else was doing like the
Yeah.
exact same thing. It's
People
so
must
weird.
be trying to get out of Ohio. So that's why we have the most
Weird.
astronauts. So anyway, the ruin pubs are really cool. Eventually they evolved to become like kind of like a very underground artsy like space for artists, musicians. So you can go to one ruin pub, but it'll be divided into multiple rooms because again, these were warehouses.
Right, yeah.
So the one that we went to was awesome. And one, there was like a rainforest art installation type thing. We went to the next room and it was someone spinning like dance music from the 90s. The next one was hip hop. Like it was awesome.
You just unlocked a memory though. Do you remember Rainforest Cafe?
I don't remember as much as that. I remember the trauma.
Like, was Rainforest Cafe, that was international, wasn't it? That
don't-
wasn't just a US thing. Like, we spread that vitriol everywhere.
It's our proudest export. Rainforest
like,
Cafe.
those, I think there's like maybe one or two in existence still, but those really died off. But to me, that was tourist at its finest. That was
those animatronic gorillas really scarred me.
I mean, I honestly, like, we have a rainforest at our zoo close to us. So for a while, those memories blurred for me as a kid. So, like, for a while, I thought our rainforest just was the Rainforest Cafe. And
It's the Rainforest Cafe.
So we'd go to the rainforest and I'd be like, but where's the stuff? Like, where's that cool table we sat at last time?
Where's our table?
Just
Speak
like,
to the manager.
I did not like separate them very well in my memories, I don't think. Oh my God.
Well, I think like to like especially for us like Americans when we go somewhere internationally, we don't see a lot of old stuff. You know what I mean? Like maybe we'll see there are some things in the US that are maybe like 300 years old, but we don't have castles from the 12th century. Like we don't have stuff like that here. So when we go to Old Town Prague, like I'm gonna fangirl over Old Town a little bit because it's so cool. You just don't see that in the US.
Well, no, there are some certain like we were talking about this like draw of like, well, you gotta check it out. But I think for me, it's all about balance. Like I can't just do tourist traps. I want to also like get a different, more immersive experience on top of that. But like when you brought up castles, that made me think of Blarney Stone.
Ill. Gross.
So I kind of assume people know what this is, but I have been planning this trip to Ireland. And I was looking through what I wanted to do.
Are you going to do the Blarney Stone?
Absolutely not. I'm not going to do the Blarney Stone. Like, number one, isn't it kind of a religious thing?
I have no idea.
Like, I think you're like, okay, so this is my knowledge of the Blarney Stone. There is a stone. There it is. Everybody like lines up if you want to do the thing. And most of it is like kind of in the wall or something, in the castle wall or something like that. But then there's this one little portion. And on this one little portion, you kiss it with your lips. And it's supposed to bring you good luck or something. But I do think there's like
It'll bring you something, but it probably won't be good luck.
I think there's a religious element to it, although like with a lot of Ireland, that is just true because they were such a predominantly Catholic nation for so long. So like, number one, I just feel like maybe that's not for me. You know what I mean? Like this cultural experience is not for me because that's not my spiritual identity. You know what I mean? But then also I'm like, that is disgusting and
it's
just like
so
a waste
gross.
of time. So like, yeah, like something like that. Like
Nuh-uh.
I'm good to just skip it completely. Whereas other things I'm like, well, I still want to see it. Like when I went to Paris, I wanted to see the Eiffel Tower. But like, and is that a tourist trap?
Now, Paris is interesting, right? Because it is a bucket list destination for so
sure.
many people. And I would go, but even knowing this thing called the Paris syndrome, I don't know if you know what
Can you
that.
define that for me?
So the Paris syndrome, and this is the internet's definition, not mine. It's not my opinion necessarily. It's basically this syndrome that a lot of tourists or visitors experience because people have such a romanticized view of Paris
Mhm.
or France in general, but specifically Paris, because it's the city of lights.
Yeah.
City of lights. So they go there with stars in their eyes, and then they get there, and the reality is it does not match what they had in their mind at
Oh, like
all.
they're mad it's a real city in modern times and
Yeah.
isn't just like a time capsule of all the perfect things in their head
Exactly.
that should happen in
Yeah.
Paris. Yeah.
So they're extremely let down and their experience is just completely ruined.
Yeah.
So and this happens so often that they've called it the Paris syndrome.
Yeah.
Again, not my opinion because I would still go visit. Why not? And my sister lived in Paris
So
with
you
her
haven't
family.
been?
No, but my sister lived there with her family for quite some time and they
Yeah.
loved it, every aspect of it. They're the ones who told me about Paris syndrome because they would see it on all the tourists.
Yeah.
Like they're
I
just
mean,
it was like slight like
when I went, I was really little and it was one of my favorite things that we did in Europe. Like I absolutely loved everything about it. My favorite memory is just eating cheese and bread on the green lawn in front of the Eiffel Tower and just like I don't know, just having like a really casual lunch. Like I
Yeah.
loved every single thing about it. But I remember being told by my family, if anybody asks, you're Canadian. You are not an American citizen. And I was like, oh, like, okay. And like, I feel like that sort of energy has really like catapulted over these last few years. And like, there's just such this animosity that I hear about. Again, I haven't been treated this way. I have not like gone there recently, but it's TikTok after TikTok and story after story about just like, they don't want you there. They don't want
There's
you in
definitely
Paris.
yeah, there's like a I don't know if stereotype is the right word, but there's definitely a known thing. It seems like that Parisians just don't like outsiders
Yeah.
or visitors. And
And it
honestly, if I lived somewhere like Paris that was just constantly crowded with
yeah.
tourists, I would kind of feel the same, honestly. And
Well, and if you watch it change the blueprint of your city and the things that you're
yeah.
used to, and if you're watching things that used to be for locals turning into tourist traps, trust
Mhm.
me, I get it. Like, I totally understand that element, but I'm also happy to just skip it.
For
There's
sure.
so many other places in the world I want to see, like all of the rest of France, for instance. Sounds great.
Exactly. And
You
I
know
think
what I
that's
mean?
important to understand. Like, just because there's one city in a country that's known for having so many tourist traps, it's not a reflection of the culture or the country as a
You
whole.
gotta make money.
But you, yeah, that's the thing that unites us all. We all need money.
Gotta get that money.
Yeah, exactly. But but again, Paris, one of those places is gonna be touristy, but you're still gonna go anyway.
Yeah.
So to sidetrack to based on that, growing up and still now, one of my favorite movies is not my favorite movie is Kill Bill. And when I was in Tokyo the second time, my sister knows I love Kill Bill. She took me to the restaurant that inspired the building of the set, the
Mm.
restaurant where the Crazy 88 fight scene was filmed. And I only found this out that it wasn't actually filmed there. It was actually built on a soundstage. So I was really upset.
Oh no.
So super touristy, way overpriced. Still
Yeah.
went and had a great time. And I was just nerding out the whole time.
Are there any international things that you think of as tourist traps that you haven't done but you still want to do? Aside from, I know you said you've never been to Paris, but
That's interesting. Like specifically experiences, none that I can think
or
of.
just places.
Oh,
You know what I mean? Like, do you consider like the Great Wall of China a tourist trap?
yes.
Because when we were talking about the Eiffel Tower, it got me thinking. And like, have you been?
No.
Do you wanna?
No. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And it always reminds me of there's a show called An Idiot Abroad. And
What's that on? That sounds good.
oh, it's hilarious. But it's about this guy who is just not interested in seeing the world at all. He's happy being in his little hometown of somewhere in England. And his buddy, Ricky Gervais, was like, it'd be hilarious to send Carl to all these places that he's gonna be so out of his element. Like, for example, this guy thinks like flour is spicy, right?
Oh.
Like, yeah.
Sweet thing.
Yeah, bless his heart.
I was just gonna say, bless your heart.
Yeah, so like first episode they send Carl to India. Like India is a hard
wow.
place, even if you are a experienced traveler. It's a lot for sure in many ways. But there's an episode he goes to China and he goes to the Great Wall and he's so unimpressed by it. And I feel like this
Yeah.
would be my reaction. He's to the camera, he's like, it's not that great. It's all right. It's like the all right wall of China. And I'm like,
a
I'm like,
good
I am
joke.
Carl and Carl is me, because I feel like that's how I would feel if I went
Yeah.
to the Great Wall of China.
Well, and as soon as you brought up him being from England, I totally forgot I did the double-decker bus thing.
You did.
The red bus, the red tour bus.
It's such an iconic, like,
I loved it. I thought it was so cool.
Did you take photos in the red photo booths?
I took them all at
Did you
night.
try to?
I took all my photos on that tour at night with a flash, what do you call that? Like disposable camera. So it is just railing after railing after railing of unusable photos.
Did you try to like
I was in my
distract the
youth.
guards outside the?
Oh, I don't think my family would have stood for that.
No.
I think they would have shipped me home.
When I see people doing that, it reminds me of every bad like scene in a rom-com from the 90s,
Yes,
you know?
yes, absolutely, absolutely. Oh man. So for better or worse, tourist traps do seem to just be a part of travel.
Yep.
And sometimes they're fun, sometimes they're silly, and sometimes they feel like a total waste of time.
But you know what? If it's part of your experience and something you want to do, go take that picture with the Leaning Tower of Pisa, even though
Yeah,
there's nothing
there's a lot of
special.
other things you can do in that country, but
if that's what you want to do, then do it.
yeah.
But don't. I think I've mentioned this before in a previous episode where I talked about budget traveling. You have to manage your expectations a little bit.
For sure.
Yeah. Like the Mona Lisa, I've heard some people.
Stupid. It is stupid and small. And this was back in the day when they would actually let you get up close. Now it's a completely different thing
Now,
post-COVID.
if you asked me in like 2005 when the Da Vinci Code came out and I was so wrapped up in all that, the Dan Brown phenomenon, yeah, take me to the Louvre. I wanted to see the Mona Lisa.
No, the Louvre, amazing. You should absolutely. I mean,
Never
I like
been.
museums, so like, you know what I mean. Just like the line, it's just one stupid painting. I'm sorry. Like, what? She's smiling. It's groundbreaking. No, it's stupid. It is. Glad I saw it, but I've never thought about it again. I've
Yeah,
never
I
once
don't
been like,
know.
what a life-changing experience.
Or like I've heard the same thing about the Trevi Fountain.
I did that. Oh, okay. This is actually a funny story. So
You know, only because I know you love the Lizzie McGuire movie.
no,
Is that why?
no, we were in Italy and it was so hot. Like it was so unbearably hot. And all over Europe they have these fountains. Europe just loves fountains. They got fountains everywhere.
They love fountains the way we love rock formations.
So I guess I don't know. I've never thought about that. I can't
Think about it now. But think about it. We have so
Yeah.
many famous rocks.
You've got Dwayne the Rock Johnson. You got
Rock.
Chris Rock, Kid Rock, of course, America's pride and joy.
Rock of Love, that TV show.
Yeah, so you know, rocks are just really important
Yeah.
here. No, so we were in Italy, and like I said, it was so hot, and they had all these fountains. So anytime we would walk by one, we'd walk under it or near it, or like get that splash of water to have a little bit of relief from the scorching sun. And then we get to the Trevi Fountain, and we think it's no different. So we are.
Did you know it was the Trevi Fountain?
Yeah.
Okay, so it wasn't like
No, we didn't just stumble upon the Trevi
Okay,
Fountain.
yeah.
We were like going to that area, and it's me, my sister, my cousin, and we are elbow deep and
Oh my
further
God.
in this
Sounds
water.
like a nightmare.
It was about 30 seconds till the officials came over and they're like, no, you cannot be in this water. You cannot touch this water. You can't run your fingers through this water. Do you see anybody else doing that? Stupid Americans? No, of course not.
Did you drink from it?
No. But like, it was so, if I had the ability to be embarrassed at that age, I would have been. I would have been mortified. But I think my grandma has the photo of us doing that. So
But you're gonna have to find that photo.
I'll see if I can find it.
That is hilarious.
Yeah, so embarrassed. Just like, yeah. So like, technically, is that a tourist trap? Absolutely. But also, does it doesn't cost anything? I think that's a big thing for me too. Can I walk by it? Can I walk through this tourist trap and then just go away? Or am I spending $100 just to look at something? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's. I mean, I know we're getting a little long in the episode here, but what about tourist traps you do spend a lot of money on? Like for me, I think of gosh, what's the Lake Zurich in Switzerland, which already is a breathtakingly expensive country. But I'm like, you know what? I'm in Switzerland. I want to go see Lake Zurich. I don't care. It looks gorgeous, and it really was beautiful. But I paid a small fortune to rent a rowboat, and
Oh damn, that does sound like beautiful.
it was awesome,
Yeah.
honestly. And yeah, I had to skip a meal to afford it, but like. You know,
Travel math.
you give and you take. But like, I can say now, like, I had a rowboat. I was in the middle of Lake
Yeah.
Zurich, which is gorgeous, and it was worth every dollar that I spent on it.
Like, I'm a very cheap person, and generally my mindset is I'm gonna just, after the money's gone, look at only the good aspects. So like I could
Mhm.
be all mad that like Dunn's River wasn't like I pictured it in my head. But no, even at the time I was like, this is so cool. Like I am just that sort of person, and those are the people I want to travel with. But we want to hear from all of you. What are tourist traps that you've loved? What are tourist traps that you've hated? What are ones that you kind of want to check out? Just your general opinion about it overall, because we certainly had a lot to say.
And if you wanna argue, that's cool too, I'll totally argue.
Yeah, it's a spirited debate. Why not? So thank you everybody for listening. And Annie, thank you so much. I had so much fun with this. We had been talking about doing this topic for a while. I'm not even mad that it turned into a two-parter. And I think that, maybe we saved people a little bit.
I would
Maybe,
like to think so,
yeah, I mean, we're heroes. So.
honestly. We really are. We are national heroes.
Yeah,
The
no.
point is, no matter where you are in the world, you are never too safe or too far from a tourist trap.
Yeah, absolutely. And some of them might even be worth it. That is totally up to you to decide.
I think that's the most important thing is, end of the day, if you had a great time, then that's really all that matters. And who cares if it is a tourist trap? As long
But-
as you enjoy yourself, who cares?
Yeah.
Unless it's Niagara Falls, American side.
I don't know. I want to go now just to, like, I'll probably love it. I like watching water, though. It's not the same as a bathtub for me or whatever you said in part one. But yeah, do your thing. Do your thing. Share your tourist trap opinions with us in the comments, and then keep coming back on Fridays, because that is when we bring you new travel topics and all of our crazy opinions that go along with it. And don't forget to drop your thoughts in the comments, or you can go to social media and use our hashtag #TravelStoriesUnpacked. And this podcast is brought to you by KHM Travel Group, a leading host agency for independent travel agents. Head over to khmtravel.com to learn more.